In the 14th century, China was a land drowning in chaos. The mighty Yuan dynasty was crumbling under famine, corruption, and endless wars. Villages were burning, millions starved, and hope was nothing more than a dying whisper in the wind. And in that hopeless world, a nameless beggar walked the dusty roads of Anhui. He had no family, no future, not even food to survive another day. But this man would one day rise from the ashes of despair and carve his name into history as the founding emperor of the Ming dynasty, Zhu Yuanzhang. His journey wasn't one of glory alone. It was a story written in blood, of betrayal, ambition, and the brutal cost of power. From the robes of a wandering monk to the dragon throne of China, every step he took was over the corpses of enemies and friends alike. This is not just the story of an emperor, it's the story of a man who defied fate itself. A man who proved that even the poorest soul could change the course of an empire. But when a beggar becomes a king, what does he fear the most? Losing his throne, or losing himself. 1. Childhood in darkness. China, 1328. The Mongol-led Yuan dynasty had ruled the empire for nearly a century, but its glory was fading fast. Droughts, floods, and famine tore through the land, and the peasants, crushed under endless taxes, were left to starve. In a small village of Haozhou, Anhui, a child was born into poverty so deep, his family could barely afford a handful of rice. His name was Zhu Yuanzhang. When he was only 16, death came for his family, one by one. The famine devoured everything. His parents and brothers died, and the young Jew buried them with his own hands in a shallow grave. No one wept, no one remained to weep. Alone, barefoot, and starving, he wandered from village to village, begging for scraps, sleeping under temple gates, witnessing the cruelty of both war and men. He saw soldiers burn homes for sport. He saw children sold for a bowl of grain. In that world, mercy was a luxury only the rich could afford. With nowhere left to go, Zhu found refuge in a Buddhist temple, the Huangjue Monastery. There, he shaved his head, took the monk's robe, and lived on alms. But even the temple could not escape the empire's decay. When famine struck again, the monks were forced to leave. Zhu wandered once more, walking hundreds of miles through chaos and corpses. Yet, within this suffering, something hardened inside him. He learned discipline. He learned silence. He learned that to survive in a world ruled by power, one must become power itself. Every grain of rice he begged for, every insult he endured, they carved a scar in his heart, and that scar would one day shape an emperor. For Zhu Yuanzhang, poverty wasn't just a condition, it was his first teacher. It taught him to endure, to wait, and to never, ever forget where he came from. 2. When the people rose by the mid-14th century, the empire was burning. The Mongol rulers of the Yuan dynasty had lost the mandate of heaven. Famine, plague, and corruption had pushed the peasants past their breaking point. Across the land, villages rose in rebellion, and their banner was red. They called themselves the Red Turban Army, a movement born out of desperation and faith. It was part revolution, part religion, fueled by Buddhist prophecies that a new ruler, chosen by heaven, would save the people. In 1352, a young wanderer, hungry, homeless, and unknown, joined their ranks. His name was Zhu Yuanzhang. At first, he was just another soldier among thousands. But war has a way of revealing men's true nature. Zhu's discipline, patience, and quiet intelligence soon caught the eye of his commander, Guo Zixing, a man who saw in the young monk something extraordinary. Under Guo's leadership, Zhu learned the art of strategy and command. He married Guo's adopted daughter, Lady Ma, whose wisdom and compassion would become his moral compass amid the chaos of war. Together, they built loyalty not through fear, but through fairness, a rare quality in those brutal times. Villagers who once hid from soldiers now opened their gates to Zhu's army, believing that this man fought for the people, not against them. As years passed, Zhu's power grew. One by one, he defeated rival warlords, absorbing their forces and uniting the fractured rebel bands under his banner. But his rise was not without blood. Each victory demanded a price. Friends became rivals. Rivals became corpses. The Red Turban cause, once pure and idealistic, began to darken with ambition. And Zhu Yuanzhang, the humble monk turned general, was learning the most dangerous lesson of all. To save the people, he might have to become the very thing he once despised. The beggar who had nothing was now holding the sword that could change the fate of China. 3. The War for Heaven. By the 1360s, China was no longer an empire. It was a battlefield. Dozens of rebel armies fought to claim the mandate of heaven, each dreaming of becoming the one to rebuild the fallen dynasty. Among them stood 3 giants: Chen Yuliang, the cunning warlord of the south; Zhang Shicheng, the merchant-turned-king of Suzhou; and Zhu Yuanzhang, the former beggar who rose through chaos. To the people, Zhu was a symbol of justice, a man of humble origins fighting for the forgotten. But to his enemies, he was becoming a storm. In 1363, the 2 greatest armies of the age clashed on the waters of Lake Poyang, one of the largest naval battles in Chinese history. Thousands of ships, fire arrows lighting the sky. The lake turned red with blood and smoke. For over a month, Zhu Yuanzhang's forces fought Chen Yuliang's navy. Starvation, fire, and disease consumed both sides. But Zhu's discipline, his relentless patience, and his brilliant use of wind and fire broke Chen's fleet apart. When the smoke cleared, Chen Yuliang was dead, and the river now carried Zhu Yuanzhang's banner. Victory followed victory. Zhu marched north, crushed Zhang Shiqing, and swept across the Yangtze Valley like a rising tide. By 1368, his armies reached the gates of Dadu, modern-day Beijing. The last Mongol emperor fled into the northern steppe, and with a single decree, Zhu Yuanzhang declared the birth of a new dynasty, the Ming. His reign name would be Hongwu, vastly martial. The beggar had become the son of heaven. The monk had become the master of all under heaven. But behind the celebrations and the golden banners, there was no joy in Zhu's eyes. He had seen too much: famine, betrayal, death without end. The road to power had demanded everything he had, and taken everything he loved. The man who had fought for the people was now standing above them all, alone on a mountain of corpses. 4. The Emperor's Shadow. The year was 1368. Zhu Yuanzhang had done the impossible. The Mongols were driven out. The land, after decades of chaos, finally had peace. The beggar had become the Hongwu Emperor, ruler of the Ming dynasty, the first native Chinese emperor in over a century. In Nanjing, golden dragons coiled across new palace walls. Bells rang in celebration, and banners proclaimed the dawn of a new age. But peace came at a terrible price. Years of blood and betrayal had left deep scars in Zhu's heart. He trusted no one, not his generals, not his ministers, sometimes not even his own family. The same man who once fought for the people now ruled through fear. He built an empire of laws and punishments, determined to prevent corruption and rebellion from ever returning. Under the Hongwu Code, every crime had a punishment, and mercy was almost never among them. His paranoia grew. When rumors of plots reached the palace, he unleashed purges of unimaginable scale. Tens of thousands of officials, scholars, soldiers, even old comrades were executed for treason, often without proof. Men who once fought beside him were torn apart by his command. Blood stained the very dynasty he had built. Yet, in his mind, he was saving it. A dynasty, he once said, is like a tree. To keep it strong, you must cut away the rotten branches, no matter the cost. His wife, Empress Ma, one of the few he ever truly loved, tried to soften his heart. She reminded him of the suffering they once shared, of the vows he made to rule with compassion. But when she died, something in Zhu died with her. The once kind monk was gone. In his place stood a ruler who saw ghosts in every shadow. To the world, he was the founder of a glorious dynasty. To those who knew him, he was a man haunted by the past he could never escape. For Zhu Yuanzhang, the throne was not a reward, it was a curse. Legacy and the price of power. In the twilight of his reign, the great Emperor Zhu Yuanzhang sat alone within the vast halls of Nanjing. The golden throne he once dreamed of now felt heavier than iron. He had everything: power, empire, obedience, and yet, he had nothing. His friends were gone, his wife was gone, and the laughter that once filled his palace had long turned to silence. His eldest son, Crown Prince Zhu Biao, the heir he loved and trusted, died young, a wound that never healed. The emperor's heart darkened even more. In his final years, Zhu wrote endless edicts, warning his descendants never to forget the suffering of the people, never to repeat the corruption of the Yuan. He wanted a dynasty built on discipline and virtue, but fear had already poisoned its roots. When he died in 1398, at the age of 71, he left behind an empire powerful, united, yet fragile. His grandson, the Yuan Emperor, inherited the throne, only to be overthrown in a brutal coup by Zhu's own son, the Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, who would become the Yongle Emperor, the man who built the Forbidden City and sent Zheng He across the seas. The dynasty Zhu Yuanzhang founded would endure for nearly 3 centuries, shaping Chinese history and identity for generations. But for all his triumphs, Zhu remains a paradox, a man who rose from the lowest pit of poverty to the height of absolute power, yet never escaped the fear and loneliness of his past. He freed the people from Mongol rule, only to bind them with the weight of his own laws. He fought for compassion, but ruled through terror. History remembers him as both a hero and a tyrant, a savior and a destroyer, the beggar who became a god. In the end, the story of Zhu Yuanzhang is not just about conquest, it's about the cost of ambition, and the darkness that follows when power replaces purpose. Because every empire begins with a dream, and ends with a man who can no longer wake from it. History is filled with kings and conquerors, but few stories are as extraordinary, or as haunting, as that of Zhu Yuanzhang. He began life as a nameless beggar wandering through the ruins of famine and plague. He buried his parents with his bare hands. He begged for rice to survive another day. He prayed not for greatness, but simply to live. And yet, against all reason, this man rose, from the dust of hunger and despair, to overthrow a dynasty and build one of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. The Ming dynasty, an age of art, prosperity, and unity, all born from the will of a man who once owned nothing. But the story of Zhu Yuanzhang is not just about triumph, it's about transformation, and the price it demands. The same fear that once ruled his life now ruled his empire. The same pain that forged his strength also hardened his heart. In victory, he found not peace, but paranoia. The beggar who once feared the cruelty of others became the emperor others feared. Because power does not change who we are, it reveals who we've always been. In the end, Zhu Yuanzhang's life stands as both an inspiration and a warning that even the humblest soul can reshape the fate of nations. But that greatness built on suffering can never truly escape the shadow of fear. A man born in darkness created one of history's brightest dynasties. But what light shines without casting a shadow? His name would echo through the centuries, as a symbol of destiny, of struggle, and of the eternal conflict between power and humanity. And perhaps that is the truest legacy of Zhu Yuanzhang. Not the empire he built, but the reminder that every empire, no matter how glorious, begins with a dream and ends with a man.